Good morning, YouTube. This is Rockhead from Virginia Rockhead. Today is Thursday morning. We normally try to do our show on Wednesday morning, but life gets in the way. Today we're going to start off with our Thumlers 15-pound barrel. Go through that full of purchased internet rocks. And I've got some more purchased internet rocks that I want to show you that are going to eventually wind up in here. So looking forward to that. And then of course we will do our Kino haul barrel. And then I guess next week I'll show you what all I have left from the Kino haul, which is quite a bit of some pretty cool stuff. And then today I am also going to show you how I set up and do maintenance on my tumblers. So we'll clean out the barrel, lubricate and clean out the actual tumbler itself. Show you how I do that. That'll probably be a separate video. Anyway, stand by for the Thumlers 15-pound barrel full of purchased internet rocks. Thanks. Okay, so here's the contents of the barrel. In here we've got the sodalite and Unakite, which most of that has moved on. I've already been through the barrel. I kind of did it out of order. I went through it already to see what's moved on, and I've picked out a couple of rocks of interest that I'm going to talk about. But the sodalite, I think for the most part, has all moved on. The Unakite, here's one little piece right here, but for the most part it has moved on. Then of course we've got the Botswana agate with that beautiful banding on it. And we've got the leopard skin, which is really pretty stuff, coming along nicely. And then we've got the Mexican crazy lace. Let me see if I can find a piece of that. Here's a nice beautiful piece of Mexican crazy lace, which is just awesome stuff. So we'll look at that. We've got some sea jasper in here. We don't have a lot of sea jasper. Here's a little piece right here. That's actually not the greatest piece in the world, but that's a piece of sea jasper. And then we've got moonstone in here. So, so I'm going to go by and show you what I've chosen to move on and talk about a few rocks of interest. Stand by for that. Okay, so here we've got a beautiful piece of Mexican crazy lace. You can see all that quartz and it still has the lace in there. This stuff is just so cool. Nice quartz pocket down in there. The problem with this piece, well, it's got a long way to go, but the biggest problem with this is this face right here. That is some really rough stuff right there. So hopefully we'll be able to leave it in the tumbler and be able to grind that stuff out eventually. But you can see it's got a lot of grinding to do to get rid of that mess. In the process, I hope we don't lose too much of this really pretty stuff. But that is the nature of rock tumbling. So I just wanted to show you that one little problem piece here. Now we'll move on to some really pretty pieces. I love that quartz pocket up top there. And then of course, just the beautiful banding that this stuff is known for. So this piece is not quite ready to move on yet. It's still got some rough spots, but it sure is pretty. Here's another really pretty Mexican crazy lace. all that crazy lace. This stuff is just as pretty as can be. Here is a druzy pocket, which can be a good thing in a rock, but usually not when you're tumbling rocks. You have to be really careful of keeping that clean, especially when you're moving it from one grit to the next. This rock, like the last one, is not quite ready to be moved on yet, but it sure is pretty. Here's one more Mexican crazy lace real quick. Okay, so that's pretty much it for the Mexican crazy lace. Stand by to check out some Botswana agate. Okay, we'll check out some problem pieces first, and then we'll move on to the prettier pieces. This piece has got this going on right here, which is not good. That will eventually grind out, not that big of a deal. But this little piece right here needs to be cut off or grinded down, because that little area right in there will never get perfect, and it's just not a real pretty piece of the rock. Rock would look much better if you cut this piece off right through there. So I will do that maybe today, maybe next week. It's kind of a rainy, cold day outside today, so we'll see if it gets done today. Another problem child we have here is this guy with all those holes in it. Now the holes are pretty cool to look at, but the problem is those are actual holes that go down into the rock, and they get filled with grit, and you definitely don't want to move one grit to the next, as I mentioned before. So I'm not sure how I'm going to do. I don't know if I'll be able to get all that grit out of all those little teeny holes. You can see it's clogged with that dark brown black grit that's already clogged in those holes. Don't know if I'll be able to fix that. Not sure what I'm going to do with that rock. Here's another problem child. See these real deep corners, right? That will never get polished like that. Other than that, it is a gorgeous rock. It's got beautiful banding on it. It's got this little problem area too. So, but it's such a pretty rock. You know, this might be one of those rocks that you just say, I'm just going to have to move it on to the next stage, even though it's not ready. It will never be ready. So we'll see what we decide to do with that. Now let's move on to some pretty ones. This is just a gorgeous piece of Botswana agate. Look at that banding in there, and that's shadow banding. You can look down into the rock that way, but if you turn it that way, you can't. See that? This is my favorite rock so far. Just love the Botswana agate. Here's another real pretty piece. It's got that up top. Other than that, this thing would be ready to move on. Look at that banding. Here's the bottom. Front. Got a little quartz pocket right there. Pretty rock. Then of course we have to talk about Batman's Eye, my favorite Botswana agate that I have here, because doesn't that look like Batman's eye with the mask on? Anyway, not quite ready to move on yet. It's got that problem spot right there under the eye, which is the prettiest part of the rock, well, the coolest part. So it's going to go back in the tumbler and hopefully get rid of that little imperfection there. But there's Batman's eye. The other side is nice too. Not quite as cool as Batman's eye. So kind of went out of order. I should have said the best for last. This is the best. And so is the Mexican crazy lace. I went backwards. So stand by for the sea jasper. So this stuff here has not been my favorite rock so far. This rock in particular is a problem child. You can see it's got that really rough area right there, and it's kind of all throughout the rock. So once again, you know, in order to tumble that completely out of there, this rock would be mostly gone. So I'm not sure. Some people keep these problem rocks and then eventually just tumble them and polish them all together and see what comes out. I've been throwing them away, which I probably shouldn't do. So not sure what I'll do with this one just yet. We'll see. Here are some prettier pieces of the sea jasper. Now these have actually given me a little bit of hope in the sea jasper. I have a bag of it downstairs that I ordered from somewhere, and I haven't been putting it in there because honestly I've been unimpressed with this rock. Didn't look like much when I first put it in there, but here's a prettier piece, and it is looking good. I like it. I'm starting to warm up to this rock a little bit now. Still not ready to move on to the next stage, but it's a pretty piece. Here's another pretty piece right here. Really dark and hard to see that design in there, that pattern, but it is pretty. It's a pretty rock. So those are a couple of good examples of the sea jasper. So now we'll just take a quick look at the ones that I have decided to move on to the polishing stage this week, or into the Lotto tumbler. And we'll take a quick look at that, so stand by for that. Oops, made a little bit of a mistake. I forgot to talk about these few rocks of interest of the moonstone. So here's the moonstone. It hasn't been in there very long. It's you know, coming along. You can see how fractured this is. This thing will never be like transparent. I guess it's not supposed to. I'm not real familiar with moonstone. I don't like all those fractures in there, but I guess that's just what moonstone is. So here's a nice piece. It got a little bit of pink in there. This is a very white piece. Very pretty. This one's almost ready to move on to the next stage. See a little bit of fluorescing going on there. I guess that's what moonstones do. Here's a dark piece of the moonstone. Got a long way to go with that deep fracture. Here is a nice pink piece, looking good. Still has a ways to go. And this piece looks pretty good. It actually might be ready to move on. Yeah, I think I might move this piece on. So that's the moonstone. Now I'll show you all the stuff that I've decided to move on to the Lotto tumbler. So stand by for that. Okay, so this is the stuff that is ready to move on to the next stage, which is the first stage of the Lotto tumbler. For those who don't know, the very first stage of rock tumbling is called rough grit. I've been using 80 grit. A lot of people use the 3570 grit, which is a little rougher. And that's first grit. That's what you do. And the tumbler, you can do it really whichever. You can do it in a tumbler or the vibratory tumbler or whatever. But the popular way to do it is first stage goes in the rotary tumbler, and it just rotates around in there and tumbles around in that rough grit, and it usually takes a long time, several weeks. Then after that, things kind of go quickly, especially if you have a vibratory tumbler like a Lotto tumbler. And then, so after the first stage, you move it into the Lotto tumbler, where the next 3 stages go by pretty quickly, and then you have a finished product. So these rocks here have all been in the tumbler, and they have been in there for weeks. This stuff here, the leopard skin, is pretty soft stuff. It didn't take that long to go through and get ready for the next stage. These Botswana agates have been in there for a long time. They are a very, very hard rock. Got the Unakite in here. It's pretty hard rock too. It's been in there for a while. Just about most of that has moved on now. And then the same thing with the sodalite. It's been in there a while. These are pretty much the last few stubborn pieces. There might be one or two more pieces in there. Got one piece of the sea jasper moving on, and one little piece of the moonstone moving on. Actually, that last piece that we just looked at, I think I'll move this one on too. So that's what's moving on to the next stage. Normally at this point I would refill the barrel and see if we have any room to add more rock, but this week I'm going to do a video on maintenance of my tumblers, so I have to do that before I can refill it. So we'll get all that done and stand by for what we're going to put in for next time. Thank you. Okay folks, so this is some new rock that I just ordered that will be going in the barrel that we just reviewed. This is Brazilian agate. I ordered from the gem shop. Excuse my dirty hands, I just did a maintenance video on the tumblers, and I did wash my hands. Just maybe I should have worn gloves, excuse me. So this is Brazilian agate. Let's see if it looks better wet, because right now I'm not very impressed. This actually looks a lot like local agate that I find here in Northern Virginia. So that's a pretty big old piece right there. So that will obviously have to be broken up with a hammer and chisel to fit into the tumbler. Here we have some Rocky Butte Pitcher Jasper, 1 pound from the gem shop at $7 a pound. Now pitcher jasper is usually slabbed, and somehow the design of that rock, when you slab it, it just somehow always looks like a pitcher, a landscape pitcher or something. But I'm not going to slab it. I'm going to tumble it. I think it'll still be pretty cool that way. Here we have what I'm very excited about, my Botswana agate. This is whole nodule stuff. This is from the gem shop. So these are also pretty big nodules. But they're going to go in the tumbler hole, so those will be the bigger stones in there. I am so looking forward to those. I think they'll be gorgeous. You know that I love the Botswana agate. So right now they don't look like much, but I'm very excited. Like this one right here, that hole in there, I'm going to have to take that to the grinder. Got to kind of prep some of these rocks before you just throw them in the tumbler. But these are, you know, rocks are kind of expensive. These are $12 a pound, so this is 3 pounds for 36 bucks. This is ruby and zoisite. This is a 4 pound hunk of it. That's a slabbed face, so you can see kind of what you're looking at. Very expensive. Almost embarrassed to tell you how much I paid for that. 4 pounds of it for 80 bucks. This here is the sea jasper, which I already have some time. We went over this already. I wasn't real impressed with this, but more recently I'm starting to warm up to it. I hadn't been putting much of it in the tumbler, but that's going to go in the tumbler too. This stuff right here is fresh from Roughstone LLC. This is polychrome jasper. It should look pretty good all tumbled up. This right here is Azurite malachite. This is 2 pounds of it. Oh, you know what? I don't know how much I paid for this. But that's real pretty stuff. Should tumble up real nice. Exterior there will give you Oops, my fingerprints in the camera. Get my water bottle here. Looks a little better when it's wet. And then here we have the Purpleite Trifolite. I could show you a picture on this, but there might be copyright infringements. So if you want to see what that stuff looks like cleaned up and tumbled up, I guess you're just going to have to Google it, because I don't want to get into any kind of copyright trouble. This here is the fire agate. This is a Mexican fire agate. Now, in the Kino Hall barrel, I had some of the stuff that I got at Kino from the Guzman family, and I bought the really cheap stuff. Even though I got the cheap stuff, it kind of cool. I kind of like it. So I bought this stuff here, 2 pounds of it. I wish I had written down how much I paid for it, but I did not. This is from Roughstone LLC. Now, all of these right here are also Roughstone LLC, and I weighed them and all that stuff. Everything is good, but this is 2 pounds, and they sent this little teeny pebbles, a bunch of this stuff, in order to make it weigh 2 pounds, which I think is pretty chintzy. Now there is some good sized stuff too, but just to put the weight up to 200 pounds, throw all this little pebbly stuff in there. A little disappointed in that. But overall, I think this fire agate, I bet you there is some really good looking stuff hidden in there. So let me reload my Thumlers 15-pound barrel with the rocks that we've already been over and looked at, and we'll see if we have any room for this new stuff. So stand by for that. Okay, folks, so if you've enjoyed the video so far, give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing. We've got lots of good stuff coming up. Right after this, I've got the Kino Hall barrel, and then on Sunday we'll have the locally collected rocks coming up. I just made the video on maintenance of the Thumlers Model B 15-pound barrel. So this is the polychrome jasper from Roughstone LLC. Don't have a lot of room in the barrel this week, even though we did move some good stuff on. I have been overfilling my barrel, and as a result, not using all the grit, and things are just kind of moving along slower than they should. So we're gonna try not to overload our barrels. 2/3 to 3/4 of the way full. So not one teeny little bit over 3/4. So anyway, we have a little bit of room. We're gonna add this picture jasper right here, and that'll be it for the internet purchased rocks barrel. Picture jasper, it's looking pretty cool. It's very rough. I mean, it's got some sharp edges on there, so this stuff is going to wear down quickly, and it's also kind of surprisingly small. We're going to wind up with some very, very small pieces out of this. You know, if you're considering ordering some picture jasper for yourself, actually this is the polychrome jasper, not the picture jasper, sorry for that. But if you're considering ordering the polychrome jasper, I would recommend making sure they're big enough. Don't order the small stuff like this little piece right here. By the time it's done, it's not going to be much at all. It might probably be smaller than a marble. So anyway, we're going to throw this in there, and we'll button up the Thumlers barrel and move on to the Kino Hall. So stand by for that. Okay, so here is the contents of the Extreme 17-pound barrel filled with the Kino Hall. Later I will do another video on what I have left of the Kino Hall. I did an initial video which actually didn't turn out all that great, but we've got all this stuff going on, which is kind of a lot, and a ton more to go. That will be a whole separate video on what is left of the Kino Hall. But it is plenty. So let me get this sorted out into its respective piles. We'll take a look at a few rocks of interest and stand by for that. Okay, so here is the fire agate. This stuff does sometimes have some fire in it. You really need the sun, and today is a rainy day, so we're not going to be able to see it. But this is the stuff I ordered more of, so looking forward to that on the other barrel. This is the Amethyst from Zambia. When I was grouping this together, it looked like some pieces might be ready to move on to polishing stage, so we'll see what happens there. This is the blue Chalcedony. Doesn't look like it's ready to move on yet. The Honduras Opal. This stuff does have some fire in it, but once again, you really need the sun to be shining, so nothing today. Here is the Sunston from Tanzania. Check it out and see if it's ready to move on. This is the stuff that I collected from Saddle Mountain when I was in Arizona. Check that out. Here is the Geode that fluoresces green. Been tumbling it for a while. It's got a ways to go. This is the Larimar. Evidently pretty hard rock. It's just taking a very long time despite its small size. This is the Liddicontite. We'll check and see if this is ready to move on. Feels kind of porous, but that doesn't mean it's not ready to move on. This is the Kimbamba. I think one or two pieces of that will be ready to move on this week. Chrysocolla. Once again, I think some will be ready to move on. This is the cheat sheet. The Tanzanian Opal. You know, it'd be nice to have some sun today to see if this stuff has any opalescence going on, but no such luck. This might be mystery rock number 1. I'm not sure what that stuff is. It's very porous, kind of fractured. We'll check it out and see if anything's ready to move on. Here is the show off Labradorite. I think a couple pieces of this might be ready to move on. Maybe this piece right here, actually. So we'll check that out. And then recently added is the Laguna Lace. Very pretty stuff. We'll check that out. And then here is, I'm not sure where this stuff goes. I do have 2 mystery rocks in here that when I bought it, I just didn't know what it was. So we'll check all that out, see what's ready to move on, and see if we have any room in the barrel to add anything else. Stand by. Okay, so we got the Extreme Rebel 17 barrel with the Kino hull all cleaned out, and a few things were ready to move on. So we have some room to add some new things. This is Indian Garnet. This is Chalcedony. I think this is what I'm going to put in the barrel today. This is top grade Laguna agate. This is what I'll finish the hull with. You see how pretty that is. This is Kabamba. I've already got some of that in there. I originally didn't put this in there because the pieces were too big, but I was able to get those broken up into nice sized pieces, so they're ready to go. This is Ruby Zoisite. I bought some more of this. This is just one little rock of it. You know what? I think I'll put this in there too today. Pretty good looking stuff. And then we've got the purple passion right here. I already broke that up with a hammer and chisel. That'll go in there. Cold Mountain Thunder eggs. I cut some of these on the saw. Some of them did not get cut if they're small. Laguna agate. The Trincus geodes. So 3 more geodes to go. This is a whole batch of just kind of leftovers from a dinosaur bone and rare rock shop. So there's some pretty good looking stuff in here. I think that's dinosaur bone. The problem with this stuff is I don't know what it is. But there's some pretty good looking stuff in here. So I think what I'll do is put that in a 3-pound barrel because it's all thin stuff that's been cut and kind of broke. So I'll put this in the 3-pound tumbler. With the peridot, which is really small stuff here. So I'll mix those two and the 2 3-pound barrels that I haven't even used yet. So anyway, this is the Kino haul. Sorry about the dirty backdrop there. I did my monthly maintenance on this and wound up laying out the Kino haul on it. So that's it. Today we're going to put in the chalcopyrite and the ruby zoisite. So that's it for today, folks. Thanks for watching.